Hello and welcome to the second lesson of this course. Today we're going to be talking about notes, scales, accidentals, how to play them, and how it applies to the trombone. Again, this is very important. Now that we have rhythm down, we're going to combine that with notes, and that'll combine the basis of how to play music. So, without further ado, let's get into it. This video, we're going to be talking about notes. Notes of the scales, what flats and sharps mean, and what do accidentals mean. So music is divided into two clefs. You have the treble clef and the bass clef. Well, correction. Divided into two normally. There are more clefs, but don't worry about it. So you have treble clef. Those are the annoying instruments, like trumpet, flute, stuff no one cares about. And then you have the bass clef, the best one. This is where the trombones, tubas, baritone, instruments of value. This is what they play. So under bass clef, here are the notes. Notes of the bass clef. Starting from F here, goes up to F, and then it starts repeating again. Or up to G, I should say. So notes only go from A to G. Once you hit G, it just starts to repeat. There's no H or I note. To remember the gaps here, I don't know if you've learned it, but all cows eat grass. That's how you learn these gap notes here, A, C, E, G. And because it's all alphabetical, so you know this is A, and then, oh, this is a B. Okay, cows, and then D here, E, F, G, A. And then that continues. So here's your technical, and again, now that you know that, you could go in here, you could count this music, you could count it through, and you could label the notes. However, what is that? What does that mean? There's two little bee-looking things. What does that mean? Well, this tells us the key of the piece. So from here, this tells us, okay, notes B and E are flat. And from that, we can determine that we are in the key of B flat. And that means that throughout this whole piece, the notes B and E will be flat. So anytime you see an E, you'll have to play it in third position to make it flat. So like here, it's not listed, but it is listed over here. So just have to keep that in mind. And we know this because of the major scales. So here they are, all listed. So the B's mean flat, and these hashtags, as I'm sure you're more familiar with, that is not the term, they're sharps. And each key is determined by a specific number of flats and sharps, and that will not change. So whenever you see two flats, it will always be B flat. Whenever you see one sharp, it will always be G. That will not change. So what I would do is I would go through your scales, print this out, or I know you got that list, and just keep that handy for whenever you see, oh, I wonder what 3 flats is. Well, that's E flat. And then I would go through and label each note with the note name and the slide position. Because in B flat, you'll notice the B and the E are flat, but in A flat, or E flat, the A is flat. So you might go from one piece being in B flat, one to being in E flat, and you'll not play this A here. You won't play it flat, and it'll sound wrong. So that's why knowing your keys are important, or at least knowing what they mean, and have them at least, if you can't memorize them, at least have them readily available. And I would go through your music and label the notes and label the slide positions, just so you know you're in the right key. So from before, we know that your technical is in the key of B flat because of the 2 flats. So in the B flat scale, the notes B and E are flat. So what does that mean to play? Well, on trombone, what that means is you're taking the note. So, for example, E. In the key of B flat, it's flat. So E normally is second position on the trombone, right? So it's going to be here, halfway between first and third, which is under the bell. So E is normally second, but because it's flat, you're going to bring it down a slide position to third. The same is true, or the opposite is true if it's sharp. If it's sharp, you're going to bring it up a slide position. So E sharp is now going to be in first position. There are exceptions to the rule. For example, F sharp, F already being in first position, you can't go further past it, so you play that in fifth position. And again, that comes with just more musical knowledge and theory understanding. But I gave you this chart here. I would print this out, look at it, memorize it, just so you know what the exceptions are and generally what notes you are playing and what slide positions they are. So the lyrical piece is in A flat. Be careful with that. You have a lot of extra notes. So A, B, D, and E are all going to be flat. So I would mark that in. If that means you have to go in and mark every one of those as being flat, then I would do that. Otherwise, it's just going to sound wrong. And the lyrical piece already sounds kind of wonky just because that's just how they write these types of things. It doesn't sound good. So you may not know, but you'll lose points if you're playing an E natural instead of E flat. Again, it's important to recognize the key that you're in and recognize what is flat and what is sharp, because a wrong note will sound very wrong, especially in an ensemble setting, in a chord. You don't want to be that guy playing the wrong note. So we're pulling up your technical piece again, taking a look at it. So now we know the key is B flat, so you can label all the notes again. But what is this thing? It's flat, and now it's saying sharp. Not that this note is flat, but, it's B flat. Now you're telling me F sharp. So that's called an accidental. And an accidental takes a note, for example, F, which is in the key of B flat, and changes it so it's out of key. In this case, it's changing F to be F sharp. So normally, when you look at that, you'd go, well, that's out of key, and that's why it's called an accidental. The tricky thing with accidentals is that they apply for the full measure. So you see this F being an F sharp. If there was another F in this measure, which there is right here, you'd have to play it sharp. You can't play it, it applies to the full measure. So you have to take F sharp, and then it applies here, unless there's a negation mark, which I will show you. Unless there's a negation mark, it applies to the full measure. So be careful with that. That'll trip you up. So you see the F here, and then it shows up here. So the Fs in this major are sharp, and then they reset. After the bar line, they reset. So here's the accidentals. These are all of them that you will see. Don't worry about the double flat and the double sharp. You don't really see that a whole lot. And again, that just comes with more knowledge as you get further into your playing. So again, here's just another example. So you take this B flat. B, normally, it's, B's, let's say it's in the key of F, and the B isn't normally flat, but it is in this case. Because there's another one over here, that is now also going to be flat until the next measure where it's negated naturally. If the composer only wanted this note to be B flat, then this note would have what's called a natural or a sharp. So because it's implied that this B is normally not flat, they would just put a natural sign here, and you'll play B natural again. So that's it for the notes, accidentals. A lot of memorizing going on, but again, that just comes with practice and knowledge of your instrument. And as you get further on into your playing, it'll become a lot more easier to understand what these different notes are, what they mean, and how to play them. My advice would be to go through your music. So go through here and label each note with its associated slide position. And that just helps you understand more of what you're playing, especially when you're in a different key, like how this is in B flat, but then your lyrical is in A flat. And if you're not thinking, if you don't have the notes labeled or know what the notes are, you might be going in thinking, oh, well, I can play my A's, my A over here as A natural, because it is in this piece, but then you get to the next piece, and these have to be flattened, and then it'll sound wrong. So I would go through and label each note with its associated slide position, and I will give you in the description, there should be a PDF file of both of your pieces with the slide positions labeled, but I would go through them first on your own and then match it up with mine and see if you're correct and then see if I'm correct, because I haven't played in a while. But that's my recommendation for the music. I would also go through and put all the counting through and count through your music, put the syllables all there, and once you put everything all together, you should be able to roughly play through all these pieces. And then we got to handle these markings. So let's get to the next video.